Hi everyone, George here, and I'm very excited to be able to bring you another video from my friend's house. His name is Daz, and I've done 2 scapes for him. The first one 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, and then the last one 3 years ago. I'll leave a link to those in the description. But Daz is a good friend. He brings me over every couple of years to do a rescape on his tank, so really grateful for this opportunity. And yeah, really excited to do a brand new scape for you guys as well. So standard stuff, we'll go through the whole process, tell you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and yeah, hope you enjoy it. If you do, hit that like button, drop us a comment, what fish should we put in here, although we already know what fish, don't we, because you've got them. Yeah, and yeah, subscribe if you haven't done so already, that'd be really appreciated. Okay, so let's crack on with the scape. Okay, before we start the scaping process, let's just talk about this system here. It's an ADA 60P. Many of you will have heard of this tank, a classic by ADA, 60 centimeters long by 30 front to back by 36 tall, holds about 60 litres or 15 US gallons. It's low iron glass, super low iron glass, so really transparent. The idea is we're going to create a floating column of water. That's why we have glass inlet, glass outlet. We'll show you all that later. But the idea is, rimless tank, perfect for aquascaping. We can have wood coming out the top and good stuff like that. It's lit by old school lighting. This is a ADA solar green. It's got the green lamp in it, which really accentuates the green colours of the plants. Metal halide, so it's 150 watts. It's actually quite an old bulb, this. It's how old, Daz? 3 years old? 4 years old, and it's still going. It's going to be quite low lighting, but we've got low light tolerant plants in here. Because the bulb is so old, it will have lost some efficiency over the years. But I'm actually a big fan of using less light if we can get away with it. It means we've got less risk of algae, less plant growth, so less maintenance, but still enough obviously to keep those plants healthy. It's sitting on an ADA cabinet as well. This is a solid wood cabinet, really good quality from ADA as you'd expect. It opens up from this side. And then we've got the lighting transformer there. And we'll obviously put the filtration and the CO2 in there later, and we'll talk about that as we do it. Okay, so let's move on to the actual scaping process. First thing we're going to do is install the substrate. We've got the complete ADA substrate system here, starting off with some Power Sand Advanced, a couple of little bags of those, so 4 litres of that all together. That's like a pumice stone, and it's got, I think, some organic compounds in there, some bacteria products, I think it's even got activated carbon, and it acts as a long-term nutrition for the substrate, and also a bacteria starter and a water clarifier as well, I believe. Not absolutely necessary, but if you want to get the absolute best out of your substrate, and ADA do recommend obviously using that in conjunction with the ADA Aquasoil Amazonia, widely regarded as one of the best substrates out there. Does give you a huge ammonia spike in the first couple of weeks or so, so really important to do those large frequent water changes, as I always recommend in a new setup. Really long-term nutrition, very high in nitrogen, this is why it produces the ammonia, but proven performer and a world-class substrate system right here. And then we can top off, I'm not sure if we will do or not, but if we want to, we can top off with some ADA Aquasoil Amazonia powder, which is the same product, just a much finer texture. And that's really useful for planting delicate rooted plants, especially like carpeting plants, especially the ones who grow from Tropica. Okay, so substrate's installed. Just a refresher, 2 2-litre bags of the ADA Power Sand Special and 1 9-litre bag of the ADA Aquasoil Amazonia. Now it's time for my favourite part of the aquascaping process, the hardscape. Now I'll talk about this a lot. Really important to get your hardscape high impact, choose the right pieces, make sure they're good quality, coherent in design, and we can create a high impact aquascape quite easily. Conversely, if we didn't have a strong hardscape, or it was poorly selected or poorly composed, really tricky to create a strong aquascape. So real emphasis on creating a strong, well-balanced hardscape, and it's relatively easy to create a strong aquascape. So we've got 3 pieces of riverwood, I think this is called. I'll leave a subtitle below to confirm if this is riverwood or not. I'm pretty sure it is, from Aquarium Gardens, Epic Shop. And then we have some elderly, bit noisy. Then we have some elderly stone here. 5 pieces of this. This is very similar to Frodo stone. It might even be the same rock, just under a different label. Beautiful stone, lots of character. When I'm choosing my rocks, I do take a long time to select the best pieces, make sure it's got lots of character, look closely at these gouges, the construction, the whole kind of texture, the whole kind of form of the rock, and just try to choose the most interesting pieces you can and make sure they all kind of suit each other. So you wouldn't use elderly stone and mix it with dragonstone, for instance. We only tend to use the same type of stone in an aquascape to keep this coherent kind of layout. So let's have a mess around and see what we can create with this beautiful hardscape. Okay, so that's the rough hardscape layout complete. I'm a little bit concerned this bit is a little bit too far to the right. It doesn't look quite aesthetically balanced. So what I'm going to do is just try and gently move it over to the left to give it a bit, hopefully a bit of a better balance. And you have to consider as well, when the plants are in there, it's going to shift the whole composition as well. So we can deliberately use the plants to help achieve the best composition that we can. So I'm really happy with that, I think. Let's just check behind the camera quickly. Yep, that's looking good. The good thing about using multiple pieces of relatively kind of linear shaped wood is that you can kind of construct quite interesting designs. A lot of aquascapers will just try to search out for that one special piece of wood and use that as their kind of entire wood composition. But when you use multiple pieces, you obviously have a lot more options. A little bit more challenging to create something, but it gives you more room for creativity. So don't despair if in your local shop you don't find that one brilliant piece, because you can create something really special with multiple smaller pieces. Let's talk about plants. Big selection, quite a big selection of plants here. Let's start off with the Tropico 1-2 Grow, my absolute favourite plant group of plants, because they're grown in laboratory conditions, guaranteed to be free from algae, pests, snails. You get so much value for money in here. The plants are smaller, but you get more quantity, so great value for money. We've got Eriocaulon cinerum. This is actually an advanced plant, but I'm hopeful it will do well in here. Great substrate, good liquid fertilizers, good CO2, good circulation, moderate lighting, should be okay in there. Actually never used this in any of my homescapes, so wanted to maybe try it in the future. Has like a tall kind of vertical structure, grassy-like appearance, beautiful plants. Then we've got good old Eleocharis acicularis mini, mini hairgrass carpet. A lot of people know this one. Quite easy, does well, doesn't need CO2 really to thrive, doesn't need too much light, does well in a good substrate like we've got here. And then we've got some Marsilea crenata. This is actually quite an easy foreground carpeting plant, quite slow, low maintenance, different texture. It's got like little round leaves, similar to Glosso, but a lot slower growing. And then we have some weeping moss. So this will be glued to the wood, and under good light and CO2, it will kind of droop down in these kind of cascading formations. So that looked really attractive. And then we've got some Salvinia auriculata. This is a floating plant that I'm going to recommend Daz uses just for the first few weeks as the plant's established. Just going to help avoid early algae issues. Okay, moving on to the potted plants. Loads of epiphytes. So let's start off with a beautiful specimen of the Bulbitis hoodalotii, or African water fern. This is going to be like a centerpiece plant, focal point plant, really beautiful. Will do well with the CO2 and the circulation that we've got going on in this tank. Then we've got a few different varieties of Bucophalandra. We've got Biblis, which has got kind of long elongated leaves. We have Bucophalandra kedigang. Again, elongated leaves, beautiful coloured, glossy finish on the leaves. It kind of can turn an iridescent bluey green colour, really beautiful. Bucophalandra wavy green here, very much a green coloured leaf there, but more of a wavy formation on the leaf, kind of curled on the edges there, beautiful plant. And then, very new plant to the hobby, Schismatoglottis praetoi. This can actually be planted as an epiphyte or into the substrate. Never actually used this in anyone's private scape, but we use this a lot in the huge public aquarium that I helped to scape in Hamburg. 7,500 gallon aquarium. We used a lot of this, so excited to use it in a home aquarium. And then let's have a look at what we've got here. Good old crypts. No scape would be complete without crypts in it, as far as I'm concerned. So we've got Cryptocorini wendetii brown, and we've got Cryptocorini petchi as well. So medium-sized crypts, slow growing, low maintenance, very easy, doesn't need CO2, doesn't need good lighting, will appreciate a good substrate though. So interesting mix of plants, stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit here, not using, you know, trident fern for a change, not using any stem plants. So it will be important for Daz to perform those large frequent water changes, use those floating plants to help address these early algae issues that you often get in new setups. I like to use a lot of fast growers in the initial setup, but alternatively, we can use floating plants as well. So that's what we're doing today. So let's prepare those and then we'll get them planted. Exciting. Okay, so prep the plants, very easy process. Peel off the lid, rinse off the growth media, separate the plant into as many portions as you like. And that's what we've come up with. We've got the mini hairgrass there, the master layer there, and the Eriocaulon there. 2 pots of each, loads of plant. As you can see, absolutely loads of plants here. You could split that up into more, the hairgrass in particular, and literally get hundreds and hundreds of individual plants, but we haven't got time for that today. But just to show you how to do it and what good value the Tropico 1-2 grow are. So we'll plant those now. We'll plant them around the foreground. These are all foreground plants, as I said. We use tweezers. I like to plant into dry soil. It helps to anchor the plants better, less chance of the plants floating as well once we fill up with water. So let's plant those now. I forgot to press the record button and I just did a 5-minute spiel about underwater versus out of water plant growth, submersed, crypt melt. So I have to do it all again now. So aren't I lucky? Aren't you lucky, Daz, hearing it all again? Okay, so now it's time to plant the mid-ground and the background with crypts. We've got Cryptocorini pechi and Cryptocorini wenditii brown. The great thing about crypts is they often change their leaf shape and colour depending on the lighting and the nutrient conditions. There is a risk of crypt melt. What that means is the plant's adapting from its out of water growth to its underwater growth. So a little bit of a story for you. Most crypts we find here in the UK and Europe, etc., they're grown in greenhouses out of water hydroponically. What that means is the water's circulating around the roots and the leaves are allowed to grow out into the air. That's great because the leaves have more access to CO2 in the air, they have more access to light, and there's less risk of algae. It also means the leaves are going to be really robust, which is great for transportation. But what can happen is when we plant, the plant has to adapt from its out of water growth form, which we call emerged, to its underwater growth form, which we call submerged or submersed. So during this process, crypts in particular are quite sensitive to melting. That's when the kind of leaves disintegrate. But don't worry, if it's got a healthy rootstock, it will produce new leaf growth, no problem. In fact, what some aquascapers will do is they'll deliberately cut all the leaves off and then they'll just rely on the rootstock and that healthy kind of nutrient store to produce new leaves. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that today. I'm fairly confident that we shouldn't get much crypt melt. These are healthy crypts to start with. We've got great conditions in here. So fingers crossed we won't get any. If we do, no problem. Daz can just remove those old leaves and rest assured we'll get new leaf growth soon afterwards. Okay, foreground, background and midground are planted. No problems there. Now it's the time to attach our epiphytes. We'll talk about those more in a minute, but we need to spray the plants. We're planting into dry soil. We've got the metal halide here. It's really warm actually. So we need to stop the plants from drying out. So we just give them a quick spray. Okay, let's talk about our epiphytes. So epiphyte plants, these are plants that need to be attached to the hardscape. I want to talk about this one first, Schismatoglottis praetoi, quite a new plant to the hobby. Very similar kind of leaf shape to Anubias, quite waxy, shiny leaves here, but of the longer stem, and they've got like a crinkly edge to them, very beautiful. This is quite unique in that it can be planted as a substrate plant or as an epiphyte plant. So most epiphyte plants need to be attached to the hardscape. The reason for that is where I don't know if you can see on this bulbitis, you can see the rhizome here, this bright green kind of coloured fleshy portion here, that's the rhizome. That needs to be exposed to oxygen. What can happen is if we bury that in the soil or the substrate, it can become devoid of oxygen. That means anaerobic and it can rot away. So that's why we need to attach epiphytes to hardscape. So we've got the beautiful bulbitis here. This is going to be the focal point plant. We've also got some of this Schismatoglossis as we talked about, and then we've got 3 different species of Bucophilandra. So I'll prepare those now. We'll get those attached. We'll probably use some super glue and wedge them in between the wood and the rocks as well. And then we'll attach some moss as well using super glue on the wood. So excited. It's really starting to take shape now, isn't it? Really happy with it. More importantly, Daz is happy with it. Aren't you, Daz?
Certainly am.
That's good to know. And yeah, excited to carry on. Let's go. Okay, we're fully planted. Really excited about this one. I think it looks beautiful. Classic nature aquarium style, fairly low maintenance. Now it's time to fill the water. Then we'll do a brief rundown of everything we've done, fit the equipment, and Daz is free to take over and maintain this beauty. So let's get filled up with water using, of course, dun, 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 the mighty red colander. It's actually suffering a bit now. Look, nasty. Maybe a bit of super glue. I had this 17 years and I've used it for the vast majority of aquascapes I've ever created. So it is definitely part of my brand and I'm very sentimentally attached to it. So there we go, bit of a story about the colander. Okay guys, there we go. We've filled up with water using the special red colander, of course. We've fitted the filter, the Aquascape Biomaster 250 Thermo, pressurized CO2 using the Twin Star CO2 diffuser there. That's on a solenoid, comes on about an hour and a half before the lights come on. We've got EA glass pipework set, 12mm outlet and inlet with the built-in skimmer here. Lighting we've talked about, 150 watt metal halide ADA solar with the NA green lamp. Daz has his lights on for 6 hours a day. I normally do 8 hours, but 6 hours is fine. I'm actually a big fan of less light if you can get away with it. It means less chance of algae, less maintenance, and as long as those plants are healthy, then everything's good. It's a low maintenance layout. It's nothing too groundbreaking. I think the most interesting thing potentially for me is the use of the Schismatoglottis prey toy, a brand new plant that I've never used in a private scape before, so excited to see how that develops. We've also got the Eriocaulon cinnarum as well, which is an advanced plant, so it'll be interesting to see how that grows in this lighting. Now, this would be kind of regarded as maybe high or medium lighting, but because the bulb in here is, what, 4 years old? 4 years old now, it's probably only running at around 30 or 40% of its original capacity. But that's okay because most of these plants are relatively easy. We've got really good CO2, we've got great substrate, good liquid fertilizers, good circulation. Actually, that means you don't need so much light. And as I said, the less light you can get away with, arguably the better. Less maintenance, less algae. So we haven't got any fast growing stem plants in the background, which I normally like to use in a new system because algae is really common in new setups. So to compensate for that, I've got some Salvinia auriculata floating plants. I'm just going to pop a few bits in there. Tropical 1-2 grow, of course. And then Daz can just harvest this as he needs to. I'd probably recommend keeping it in there for 3 or 4 weeks, just until the other plants get established, have that ability to fight off algae, and then we can take out that floating plant. We call that like a helping plant. Another great thing about floating plants is that they grow really quickly. You know, they're near the light, they've got unlimited access to CO2 in the air, so they grow really quickly. Now, that's great for preventing algae. It also shades the plants below, so that helps to prevent algae as well. But we do need to be mindful that if they kind of smother the surface completely, then you're going to completely block the light out from the plants below. So I'm going to suggest to Daz that he just keeps an eye on them and just nets them out as appropriate and make sure there's not too much shading occurring underneath. So Daz will now be doing a 50% water change every day for the first week, every second day for the second week, every third day for the third week. And after 4 weeks, he can go to 150% water change once a week. Now, Daz has confessed to me he enjoys water changes, so everyone's a winner, and I'm sure he's going to have great success with this aquascape. He's invited me back in a couple of months. At the time of filming, England are about to go into a lockdown this Thursday, so hopefully everything will be kind of okay in a couple of months and I can come and see Daz again, film an update for you guys, and I'm sure he'll have great success as he has done with the previous 2 scapes I've done for him. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's been a real kind of refreshing video for me. I've not done a step-by-step tutorial like this in front of the camera for a while. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've actually filmed everything on my iPhone. So if you're interested to see any or hear any feedback on the quality, because it's so much easier to use than a bigger camera. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. So yeah, that's it guys. Beautiful classic nature aquarium, nothing too fancy, beautiful hardscape, beautiful plants, and a beautiful system for Daz to enjoy for the next couple of years. So thanks so much for watching. You take care. Keep on scaping. Cheerio.